So we're going to read chapter 12, lesson 1, water in the atmosphere. It says, how does water move through the atmosphere? During a rainstorm, the air feels moist. On a clear, cloudless day, the air may feel dry. As the sun heats the land and the oceans, the sun provides energy to change the amount of water in the atmosphere. Water is always moving between Earth's atmosphere and the surface. The movement of water through Earth's systems, powered by the sun's energy, is our water cycle. In the water cycle, water vapor enters the atmosphere by evaporation from the oceans and other bodies of water and leaves by condensation. Evaporation is the process by which molecules of liquid water escape into the air after becoming water vapor. Condensation is the process by which water vapor becomes liquid again. That's the stuff on the side of your glass on a hot summer picnic. Water vapor is also added to the air by living things. So from you, water enters the roots of plants, rises to the leaves, and is released into the air as water vapor. Animals also release water vapor into the air every time they exhale and sweat. As part of the water cycle shown in figure 1, some of the water vapor in the atmosphere condenses to form clouds. So it joins together and builds up and forms clouds. Rain and snow fall from the clouds toward the surface as precipitation, so that's water coming out of the sky. The water then runs off the surface or moves through the ground back into the lakes, streams, and eventually the ocean. So it travels underground too. Then the water cycle starts all over again. So in your book, it wants you to write what is condensation, where is evaporation, and where is precipitation. So you can write those in your book on page 421. It says figure 1, in the water cycle, water moves from plants, lakes, rivers, and oceans into the atmosphere and then falls back to Earth. Beautiful picture right there. Page 422, what is relative humidity and how is it measured? How is the quality of water vapor in the atmosphere measured? Humidity is a measure of the amount of water vapor in the air. The ability of air to hold water vapor depends on the temperature. Warm air can hold more water vapor than cool air. Relative humidity. Weather reports usually refer to water vapor in the air as relative humidity. Relative humidity is the percentage of water vapor that is actually in the air compared to the maximum amount of water the air can hold at a particular temperature. For example, 10 degrees Celsius, 1 cubic meter of air can hold at most 8 grams of water vapor. If there were 8 grams of water vapor in there, then the relative humidity of the air would be 100%. It's at its max. Air with relative humidity of 100% is said to be saturated, so very wet. If the air had 4 grams of vapor, it would only be half of 8, so it would be 50%. Measuring relative humidity. Relative humidity can be measured with an instrument called a psychrometer. Psychrometer has 2 thermometers, a wet bulb thermometer and a dry bulb thermometer, so they're on the 2 sides. Figure shown 2, the wet bulb is covered by a moist cloth. When the psychrometer is slung or spun and air blows over both thermometers, because the wet bulb thermometer is cooled by evaporation, its reading drops. So if the relative humidity is high, the water on the wet bulb evaporates slowly and the wet bulb temperature does not change. If the relative humidity is low, the water on the bulb evaporates rapidly and the wet bulb temperature drops by a large amount. The relative humidity can be found by comparing the temperature of the wet bulb and the dry bulb. Interesting. This is the wet one, this is the dry one, so the temperatures will change accordingly. That is it for these lessons. We will read through the questions. In the water cycle, blank is the form of rain or snow that falls from the clouds. We talked about that being called precipitation. Water returns to the atmosphere as vapor by the process called condensation or evaporation. Water returns to the atmosphere as vapor by the process of evaporation. Water vapor in the atmosphere blank to form clouds condenses to form clouds. Cool air can hold what water vapor than warm air, so it'll be more or less. You'll have to go back to the reading. At 10 degrees Celsius, 1 cubic meter of air can hold 8 grams. If the air has 2 grams of vapor, the relative humidity would be, oh man, it's going to be 25% because 2 of 8 is 25%. You're going to match up these words to the definitions and submit your work for points.